Well, hello and welcome to the very first in the spotlight of 2024, episode number 3. So I hope you're all you've grabbed a cup of coffee and you're eating your sandwiches. And today's well, to be honest, I'm not quite entirely sure how today's episode is going to pan out. My guest is I don't know. I was wondering what to. Strategic doer is what I try to paint him as. Business raconteur, I think, is another good description. So we're going to talk about wiki problems, strategic doing, and best of all, I think, cutting the crap. So without further ado, let's welcome today's guest, Stuart Webb.
I'm really not sure how to take the fact that I'm a raconteur, Derek. I'm going to take it positively though. Hello, how are you? How are you doing? Thank you for having me on.
I'm fine. So it's Happy New Year because it's the first one
Oh,
of
of
the year. But I
course.
thought business raconteur because, chatting about business and that sort of thing, rather than spouting about business, which is what some of our colleagues do. So yes,
we don't want to
wiki
mention
problems,
them. We don't want to mention
strategic
them.
doing.
Yeah. Often the stuff that I find myself doing are those really wicked problems, as I describe them. Those are the sort of difficult projects where you've started down a path and now you've got shareholder issues or stakeholder issues which need to be resolved, or the project runs into difficulties because we weren't really sure we'd worked out the problem we were trying to solve at the beginning, or things have shifted and it's taken us a while to get into it. And some of the other stuff I've been doing just recently, it's helping people to frame the right question, because it's impossible to really answer a business problem until you've really framed the question and got it right. So using a various number of techniques to do that, Derek, things like Lean Six Sigma and things like that, which help you to get the data you need to really understand what the problem is. And then once you know the problem, it's easier to answer.
Indeed. So the other thing I'd like to just briefly touch on is wicked problems. Some people, but it can be a buzzword. Some people may have heard of it. Some people may not have heard of it. So how would you define a wicked problem?
Do you know, wicked problems, I think, for me, are those problems where we haven't really started the definition nearly as much as we should. It's where you have it's where you fail to understand what your strategy is. Now, strategy for me, strategy comes from the Greek, and it literally means generalship. And what most people do is they drop too quickly into the doing part. Strategy is about coming up with where are we going and how are we going to get there. It's not about actually then implementing that. It's about understanding what we're trying to do, how we're what we're trying, and how we're going to get there in enough detail that you can actually take a step forward. Too many people don't really get the fully understanding of where they're trying to get to first. And I think for me, wicked problems come out of not having that fully understood. What is it we're trying to drive towards? What will the sunlit upland look like after we've got there? We're too busy to get in, we're too ready to get into the detail and start going before we've thought about where it is we're going. Does that make sense?
It does indeed to me. And we actually, believe it or not, we have at least one person listening in.
Well, Gavin seems to have sort of popped up with a salute with a.
He does. I'm going to put that on the screen, which is Gavin's definition of wiki problem is one that is not easily defined or solved, which is.
I disagree a little bit with Gavin. They're easy to solve. They may not be very easy to define, but when you have done that definition, they are solvable.
Yeah, well, I was about to throw another definition into the hat there, in that wicked problems. First of all, I'm saying not in terms of definition, but they're easy to find because they're the ones that have been around such a long time that nobody solves them and people get workarounds for them. So if it's been around 2 years, then it's probably liable to be wicked. But the other thing that I find is, and the reason they can be difficult to solve, and the reason that the one-liner may not work, I'm not saying it won't, it may not work, is that wicked problems often tend to be multi-layered.
And I think you're right. And Gavin's just popped up with another comment about, the current sort of conflicts we've got. And I think that's a great example of a wicked problem. It is going to be difficult to solve some of the conflicts we've got now because they are multi-layered. They're not only historical, but they've also involved lots of miscommunication, people who have done their level best, they've obfuscated some of the situations. So a difficult to solve wicked problem often comes from a situation which is multi-layered in both political, perhaps even technological, and even sociological. So there's lots and lots of things
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah, Gavin makes the point: are we discussing in the context of a business? Well, here we are, but the point about the war is it makes the point quite nicely. But there's an example that I like to give of a company where sales are falling, and well, what are we going to do about it? We're going to sack the sales force, aren't we?
Mhm.
But then somebody says, why are sales falling? Because our products are rubbish. Why are our products rubbish? Because we haven't developed any new products for the last 5 years. Well, why not? Because the managing director or something hasn't given any time towards doing this. Well, why not? He's crap at managing time. So all of a sudden you get from sack the sales force to sending the managing director on a time management course or getting him a more efficient PA or something. So
Yeah.
again, that's just
It is that 5 whys technique, isn't it, Derek? And I know 5 whys is dead easy to say, and it's the secret is to actually make sure you ask the right why question,
yeah,
and it's always the difficult thing about getting into these techniques, which is to ask the right question. But by the time you've asked the question why 5 times, you
yeah,
normally find that people have actually got to the root cause of your
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
The secret, of course, is to ask the right type of why and to ask it at the right time. But more than 5 layers of that asking, well, why that then gets you to the root cause. And then you can actually start building back up, having
yeah,
got to the foundation of what the problem is and moving through the layers. Now, we're once again back into the easily solvable situation. You can't easily solve something which has got a lot of history behind it, but you can understand where everybody's
yeah,
coming from. And then you can start the dialogue. And I work a lot with some of the groups that I work with, where we have to take selected people and work them where we can get people to actually dialogue.
Oh, I thought somebody like Carrie or Colleen might. So this is Carrie saying about the wiki problem with fix. Well, that is one aspect of. It's not one. I don't know. I'm not sure it's an aspect of the problem. It's an aspect of you haven't got the right fix.
I think once again we're coming back to actually what Carrie's illustrated there is where most people get into these difficulties of implementing the solution to their wicked problems because they haven't fully understood their strategy and they haven't done that 5 whys technique where they actually got to the root cause of the
Yeah,
problem. And once you sort of once you have got that in place, you can cut your carpet appropriately so that the lumps don't reappear. By
indeed.
getting to really ask the question, where are we going? How are we going to get there? And actually understanding
Yeah.
fully what that problem was to begin with.
Yeah. The other way I like to look at the wiki problem scenario is because it's multi-layered, fixing it is a bit like a surgeon closing a deep wound. You start at the bottom
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
you work up to the top, and it may
absolutely.
require several fixes on the way, but each time, hopefully, you don't get the thing that Carrie was alluding to, which is, one thing affects another. You effectively you're building solutions upon solutions. But if you don't start at the bottom, it doesn't work very well.
Let's illustrate that with a point from one of the projects I was involved with just recently. Business going through merger. The problem being solved was the fact that there were two departments that needed to be brought together. The issues that cropped up during that were one of, okay, we've got different technologies. How do we make those work together? And the problem that started out was, of course, everybody was holding on to their own little bit of the world, their own little bit of power. So we needed to break that down before we could actually define what it was that the new department was going to do. So the new department had to serve a multifaceted series of stakeholders within the environment that the new business was going to be operating in. So the turf war that was developing was about people realizing that, my bit of the world has always done this. So what you have to do is you have to stop the discussions about, well, what is it we're trying to do, and look out at the bigger picture of what the new world looks like. Define it, say that's where we need to get to. Now, to any of the processes, the systems that we've got around here at the moment, solve that new problem. Now, obviously, because you're defining something which is a bit abstract, it became quite difficult for people to sort of latch on to. So we had to spend a lot of time sort of making sure everybody understood what the vision was, understood what everything was, where we were going. And once you've got that clearly defined, you can easily knock out the bits of the new way of working. At that point, did we start to actually sort of develop the solutions?
Yeah,
People had leapt into starting too soon, and as a result, they were coming up with some great ideas, but none of which were actually going to be able to solve the problems that we saw.
Actually, just thinking about that reminded me of something that what you might have heard me talk about, which is chameleonomics, which is people go, "Oh, what's that? That's not very exciting." Well, it is exciting, but one of the ways of dealing with the problem where you're not, as it is, you mentioned, the ambiguity, is instead the mistake people make is to try and put everything in, talk about all the detail, and that's where they make the mistakes about, I suppose maybe where the post office went slightly wrong. Oh, we've got a system, let's computerize it, and they fixed a problem that maybe they sort of didn't have in the wrong way anyway.
Yeah.
But at the top, when they're having the discussions, if you use, I would say, metaphor, not metaphor as in the flowery metaphor, but some sort of metaphor that describes the situation or the problem, then you can talk about it and you can make decisions before you start going down and implementing. So I guess my chameleon is actually your strategic doer. You've got an overview, and you're making sensible decisions based on that overview before you go down and start playing with all the low level stuff, doing the implementation, if you like.
I think the great thing about Chameleon is it can look in two different directions at the same time. So as a result, you've got a wider field of view there.
Indeed, yeah, I hadn't actually thought of that. He's a very clever chap, my chameleon, but it doesn't work when he crawls over a tartan blanket.
No, well, yeah. Now that is an image I'm not going to be able to remove from my head for the rest of the afternoon.
Indeed, but the point is, if you, I mean, some sort of metaphor, if you like, some people might tack a story onto it, but doing those sorts of things is a very powerful way of making people buy into and say what the future looks like.
Stories are hugely powerful in what we're talking about, Derek, because stories help people to understand. What a story should do is it should drive people to view the world in a slightly different way. Often we come at, when we're dealing with problems, we come at it with our own baggage, our own viewpoint. A story helps you to open up your eyes to other ways of looking at things. Stories are hugely powerful in the world of resolving wicked problems, because it helps people to see other things that they may otherwise be blind to.
Yeah, and the other thing about a story is, if you write a story, I don't know. Take an example. Something we all know about, which is Harry Potter. Nobody would argue with the text. J.K. Rowling wrote it, but every kid or adult, in my case, who's ever read it, will have their own version of what Hogwarts looks like, what the castle looks like, how people move about. But even if they say, "Oh, Hagrid was this, Hagrid was that," it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the story, and you don't have to re-edit the story. And people can actually contribute to a story without the story actually having to change. It's a framework for. I mean, a really good story is a framework where people can imagine their own interaction with it, and it's not prescriptive. So that's where I think the traditional, I hate to say vision or mission statement, but the things that have been pinned on reception walls for
Yeah.
decades and are very painful to read. We're going to be the number one. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. If we have the story, then the story might tell you how the company is going to behave, not what it's going to achieve. And that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. I'll talk about fuzzy feelings. Colleen's here as well.
Stories, yeah, and you're right, Colleen. Stories are crucial to help understanding because
Yeah.
the things stories can do. It can help you when you're doing a story in one of these things. Stories can help you do two things. One of which it can help clarify, as I said, you're thinking about a problem, but it open up other things. The other thing it should do is lead you towards where it is you need to be sort of, your direction, where you should be going in order for you to understand how your behavior, how your bit of the world will fit in with the overall news story. Now, stories which don't deal with all sort of those concepts, I think often sort of don't explain everything. But, within this sort of wicked problem space, we're trying to find techniques, tools, skills which help us to sort of break down these complex problems so that they can be solved by understanding what we're all trying to do and by understanding what it is that people bring. And we were talking about, bringing the right resources into these things recently. One of the things that we were talking about, Derek, and those stories enable people to uncover resources they didn't know would actually be important for solving some of these problems. It's not just about money. There are talents and skills which other people around us may have, which may not get used day to day in a work situation, which can be so vital for bringing into a situation in order to progress a problem. So that storytelling and that helping people to unlock what they might need to do is absolutely critical to solutionizing, for want of a better word, some of the ways that we can solve some of these wicked problems.
Yeah, Andy, my mind was wandering just then, not because I didn't want to listen to you, because
Well, I don't blame you for having your mind
no,
wandering.
but my mind was wandering off, and I was thinking, well, apart from the resistance you might get from some senior members of the company, that it depends what you name these things, but these sort of strategy creation sessions ought to be run in a way like story creation
Yes,
sessions.
absolutely. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily tell them that, but the resources you bring to bear, the way you facilitate them, and the output, we could all learn from story. Oh my goodness!
Well, I mean, just while you're saying that, and this is I think Nicholas has got a point. It was Eleanor Roosevelt that said, "Great minds discuss ideas, and small minds discuss people." Too often in business, we're discussing people. We're not discussing ideas,
Indeed, yeah,
and it should be the idea of what we're trying to solve, which should be occupying us, rather than this
yeah,
the gossip. The problem that I see, and we go into something which is sort of too often the case. I don't think businesses allow people the safe space to challenge. I don't. A safe space to challenge doesn't mean that you don't disagree. It means you disagree, but nobody is going to come back at you and say that's an inappropriate thing to say. It is absolutely appropriate for people to have ding dong challenges to both have passion, but at the end of it to find a way forward. Too often we try to avoid that in business, and I don't think it's healthy. Our conversations should be deep and should be about great ideas, should be about the challenges that we have, allowing each other to challenge, but at the end of it you basically get behind an idea and move forward.
Well, ultimately, if you've done it all right, you've created a story which everybody buys into. It still needs some embellishments, but should all be moving in the same direction at that point.
Yeah, absolutely right. Having that frame.
Indeed, and that brings us almost neatly round to where we were at the beginning. Well, I mean, it's done by accident, not by design, which was about not jumping into solutions too quickly. If you create that story, you're not doing that. You're holding up for as long as possible and doing all the things that you mentioned. The uncovering of skills and other things.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah. That was good. Oh, I do love this lunchtime raconting, if that's such a word.
Yes, let's if it's not, let's get in touch with the Oxford English Dictionary and immediately get it in there.
Yeah, indeed. And if you want to blame Stuart for any of this stuff,
Quite right.
that's how you can contact him. My details will be at the end, but you'll have come off the call by then. So don't worry about it. Oh, there's all sorts of smileys and emojis going up and down the screen. This is good stuff. So if you want to get hold of Stuart, that's how you find it.
And challenge me.
Indeed. I'm quite prepared to do that anytime.
Yeah, I've noticed.
So indeed. So that neatly draws that towards the end. But I don't know. I think we'll have to do another one of these sometime. Time flies, and they're good fun. So
I'd be happy to sit and chat over wicked problems or strategic doings and other things anytime, Derek.
Indeed. Well, that's very good. That's nice of you to offer your services. I'll take you up on that. So to everybody who's come along and commented, thank you to that. I'm sure some of these people will see shortly anyway. So thank you once again, Stuart.
Derek, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I sincerely hope that we can chat over wicked problems again.
I'm sure we will. Let's make it so. Right. Well, I'll say goodbye to Stuart for now. Goodbye, Stuart, for now.
Goodbye, Derek, for now.
Okay. Bye for now, then. Right. Well, that was Stuart Webb. And those were wicked problems and other things. So I have a pre-recorded session with Catherine Mall next week. But keep your eyes peeled on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever, and take care. Have a good weekend. Stay safe in the cold weather. Bye for now.